Hey everybody, this is the Seiko 6139-6040, the so-called Silver Ghost, and I wanted to talk about it today because I have a couple of examples here that can show differences in different pieces that you might find and maybe what you might want to be looking for if you were looking for this reference to purchase, and just a little bit more about it because it's a little bit of an anomaly to the Seiko lineup during the 70s, and I think that makes it really distinctive, and it's one of my favorite vintage Seikos. So the Silver Ghost got its nickname because of this first quarter of the bezel, which you can see on the example on the right here, in more of a original state, has a kind of dark gray or medium gray coloration to it with the tachometer numerals displayed. And on this example, which is still, I would say, a good example, you could see the way not only the coloration but the numerals have started to wear away with time. And so prevalent was this issue that it probably was a big reason why it had such a short run during the mid-70s. I think it only was produced from maybe about 75 to 77, plus or minus a year. But Spencer Klein, the Seiko guru and watch repair, watch service expert, who actually did service this example by the previous owner that I got it from, and I can post that video, or post the link to the video here, had mentioned to me once that, these numerals would wear off sometimes within weeks of ownership. So it was a real problem. But there are things you can do if you do find them with the numerals intact. Like, for instance, he had clear coated the bezel of this piece to prevent any wear on the bezel. But that being said, I would still probably be careful with it and try not to, do anything that might cause those to wear any more than they already will over time. Time is going to win the battle, but we can care for it the best we can. The case shape is round, very round. It's a circle, and it has these angular lugs that jet out to meet a similarly angled bracelet. So it is the most round circular case of all the 6139s. If you think about the Bruce Lees and the Pogues, those had longer, more elongated case arcs that help define the shape of most 6139s. But this was different in that way. And I think that's a really cool characteristic of these. The case measurements, we're looking at 40. For the case diameter, we're looking at 42 for case length. The coloring of the dial on the 6139 came in two varieties. There was a orange painted dial, which I have thought about picking up, and you could see pictures of it online. It doesn't appeal to me in the same way that this color variation did, and this is a kind of, gray gold metallic. I wouldn't call it a champagne dial though, because in less lit conditions or in shade or dim conditions, it looks matte, and that's a good look. It is a nice look. In well lit conditions or in sunlight, it appears metallic, but it's more of this industrialized 70s mousy kind of metallic color, which overall, again, kind of lends to this idea of calling it the Silver Ghost. Is there's a desaturated look to these pieces. It's like the color has been drained out of them, or that the black and silver bezel contrast sort of more highlights the fact that it's really this study in beige and gray and muted tones, which compared to, again, other 6139 examples, and also 6138s were very vibrant too, but it's unlike the vibrancy of other Seikos of the period. It's not like Bruce Lee's, it's not like Pogue's, it's not like a Kakume or a Bullhead or Flying Saucer or any of these other really vibrant examples. In the bracelet, because if you do find examples with the bracelet, these are both on original bracelets, and it's very common I see these presented as original, but they're not on the original bracelet. You'll see them on Seiko bracelets, maybe a President style bracelet, or the Tank Tracks, Tank Tread style bracelet. Any of the other kind of Seiko bracelets, people would often put these on different bracelets, probably to make it appear more complete. But the bracelet was very much matching in the sense of you could see how the angular lugs meeting this angular bracelet makes some design sense. And there's these lovely angled chamfers along each of the links, the H links, and it's a chunkier H link than what you might see with other Seiko H links. It's common, and you could see on this one, which is a little more worn, some of the detail on the bracelet has been either polished or worn away, but even this one still has angularity to the edges of the H links, and that was another reason that I picked this one up. There's a few different elements to it that I thought made it a strong example, and so there was still good shape to the bracelet links, and even in the texturing that's very faint now on this one because it has been worn, but on this one you could see that there is this linear brushed texture on the H links, that's the original, so it's nice. And it's ghosted away on many of the other examples that you might find. So bracelet with its own end links, and they are, very much Seiko kind of, they're not solid end links, they're just hollow end links. On the dial, you could see on the sub-dial, it has this cushion case shaped or cushion shaped sub-dial. Very common on the 6138s. That shape of sub-dial was used a lot on the 6138s, but really almost nowhere else in the 6139 lineup. On 6139s, that sub-dial was usually circular, and it's another nice little design element here. In terms of the coloration of the sub-dial between the two, the one on the left, this one has more of that original silvery gray bare metal look to it, which is nice, and it adds to the coloration of the piece. On this one, while this piece is overall in much better condition, the sub-dial has some oxidation or patina to it. You might not be able to see, but there are a couple of spots on there. The term might be mottled, which could show that it had some moisture incursion over time. But to me, that is just part of the character of this piece. It doesn't really bother me. And I would say I've seen sub-dials with such a spectrum of different shades that this is still totally fine to me and would show, just different aging characteristics of different pieces over time. So I can show a little bit of this is the Seiko Clasp. On this one, you can see same clasp, but I think this one somebody either added a extender on the bracelet, or it was common to have this extender added at the time of purchase. So it's possible it could have been original at the time of purchase, but it's likely that that extender piece is probably an aftermarket addition. Common though. In terms of the date wheel, you can see this one has the Roman numeral date wheel, and if I advance it to Sunday, the Roman numeral date wheel has this quirky but cool red-orange Sunday day indication. That's notable for this one because it really stands out as the singular color accent of the whole piece. And so it's striking when Sunday rolls around, right? Because you're like, oh, there's the red-orange indication of that. On this one, it is both an English as well as a French date wheel or day wheel, which is kind of cool in and of itself. I mean, I would love to see a kanji day indicator on there, but the fact that this is the original one, that's totally acceptable and cool to me about this piece. There's been a couple of write-ups about the 6139 6040 online, the best probably being Mike Stockton's piece for Fratello, in which he contrasts this piece with the Zenith A386, which is one of the most vibrant timepieces ever produced and is one of my all-time favorites, the Zenith El Primero. And you might wonder, why would you compare those two models? And I think that it's really a study in contrasts. So the A386 represented a moment in Swiss watchmaking history with high beat automatic chronographs being developed, and that was really a statement piece of that time. And I think that this Seiko was right there with automatic watch development too. And not that this is in any way an answer to what the Swiss were doing, but I feel like it's a great example of Japanese automatic watchmaking at the time, because this speaks an aesthetic language all its own. It's not really trying to compete with the Swiss pieces in the same way. So, but in terms of the automatic, this being an automatic, it's not manually winding. That's probably the biggest drawback of all 6139s of this era, but no Seiko automatics during this time period were really manually winding. So to wind, you have to do the Seiko shake, and both of these chronometers are functioning just fine. So I'll post my review from FifthWrist. The guys over at FifthWrist reached out, DM'd me recently, asked me to cover the watch, which I did. I'll post the link to the Mike Stockton Fratello piece, and I'll post the servicing video from Spencer Klein for this under the previous owner, because he talks more about the movement and what a nice example this one is for a lot of the same elements that I'm discussing right now. I keep a watch out for when these pop up, and most of the time I would say this is already a rare reference to see, to find. And of the listings that come up, I would say 80 to 90% of them I wouldn't purchase because they're too worn. There's too little detail left. The bracelets are either not present, they're the wrong bracelet, or they are stretched, worn away. So finding a semi-decent, even in good condition example is difficult. And, I would call this, if I was objectively judging this one against other watch models, I would say this is very good but not excellent condition. However, for this model, because of the aging problems that it has had, I would call this excellent for this reference. And this one is in good condition, maybe because of the aging problems that this has, maybe bordering on very good. But so I've never really seen one pop up that's like pristine NOS level example. This is the closest one that I've seen to that. So just to give you a heads up. But they do pop up. So keep a watch, and I don't doubt that you'd be able to source one with enough time and attention. Feel free to leave me any questions. I'm happy to answer them, and hope that this is helpful to you in some way. Okay? Seiko 6139-6040, the Silver Ghost.